Today I'm gonna pull up the rest of my radishes. I'm a little behind the times. They should have been pulled probably about a week or so ago, but we're gonna see what we can salvage and talk about using radishes in the kitchen and all the things about radishes. It's gonna be radishing. Let's go. All right, today I am gonna be pulling I'm pulling all of my French breakfast radishes. These were grown from seed. I planted them beginning in March. And honestly, I pull some and then I would, get busy or not use them. And so I'd hesitate to pull them. And I always do this, honestly, with radishes. I would say radishes are one of those plants that you truly want to almost have a schedule for. Where you just remind yourself to pull them like every few days, because once they get to be a certain size, they get really starchy and they just don't taste good anymore. Last summer, or maybe 2 summers ago, I waited way too long and pulled radishes with my daughter. I wanted her to see them as once school was over, and we pulled them and they were almost all they just weren't hardly edible. These are still fairly good size. The thing that indicates to me that they're kind of past due is the fact that a lot of these leaves are going to seed, so they're starting to bolt. And when that happens, you just know the plant's sending their energy. Plants are all about energy, right? Where they're putting their energy, and you always want to have plants that are putting their energy toward the thing you want to be eating. And so in the case of this, when the radish is starting to go to seed, you know that their energy is going toward that, going towards the flower, rather than going towards the thing you want to eat. See, that one didn't even, I guess that was a little early to pull that one because there's nothing there. You guys know I love to pack in the plants, and some of these I did not honestly take time to thin out. So there's that. You're just gonna have times where they're not that great. But see this really thick stalk? So what this plant is doing at this point is it's just putting almost all of its energy now into creating more seed. And when it does that, just the flavor of the root is not nearly as sweet or good. I don't know if radishes are ever necessarily sweet, but that's the situation. So let's say you harvest these and they're not perfect, like the taste isn't awesome and you're not necessarily wanting to enjoy them raw. Well, I have a few things I love to do with radishes. One is to cook them, or to roast them rather, like potatoes. So I take these, slice off the root, and then I just put them on a tray with olive oil and some salt and pepper, and I roast them just like I would potatoes. And this is actually like if you want less starch in your diet, like if you like the taste of potatoes, but you want like less starch or less sugar, roasted radishes is a great alternative where you get that flavor of like a roasted potato. It's not exactly like a potato, let's be honest, but it's still pretty tasty and a great way to use the radishes. So that's one thing I love to do. Most people don't realize, especially because they often buy radishes from the grocery, that the entirety of this plant is edible. So these greens can be used in a salad. They can be used, in a stir fry. The way I love to use them is just wilting them softly and then putting a little bit of balsamic vinegar on them. So I think it was a Martha Stewart recipe that I used one time, and she did this with arugula. So she called it, I think it was wilted arugula, something like that. Well, radishes and arugula are in the same plant family, so it makes sense that you could cook them that way. So you can almost tell, right, that arugula is in the same plant family as radishes because the leaves look super similar. This is why it's so good to know plant families. This is why I love teaching plant families. So you can wilt the greens, you can saute the greens, you can eat the greens raw. All those work. So even if you're harvesting them and it's kind of suboptimal in terms of the flavor, or you feel like they've passed their peak, roasting them is a great alternative. And then the other thing I love to do with these is just a quick pickling. So you can chop them up. Oh, that's another bad one. You can chop them up and put them into a jar, and then just use a quick pickle recipe. So I'm not a big like homestead kind of gardener, you know. So I rarely do I've never, let's be honest, done like the official canning where you like seal the jars and all that kind of stuff. That kind of scares me. One day I'll be there, I'm sure. Be able to do that maybe once my kids are grown. But what I do love doing is quick pickles. So quick pickles is you just you heat up the solution and pour it over your veggies in a jar, and then I just stick them in the fridge. So quick pickling radishes like this is a great thing to do because you'll get a lot of the flavor and the crunchiness, and I found it kind of overcomes whatever might be lacking in terms of you know, whatever timing we got wrong in terms of the radishes. All right, so I think I've gotten most of what was remaining. I may have a few more. So you can see these aren't like Instagram worthy radishes by any stretch of the imagination, but I do have a ton of greens here. I could definitely make a gorgeous stir fry, or just some wilted greens with some balsamic vinegar. And then I'll probably quick pickle these little radishes for a topping for summer salads. So there you go. A couple ways to salvage your radishes when they're not the best, but still delicious, still edible. Let me know in the comments if you have any other ideas of ways to use radishes that maybe aren't perfectly timed and tasty, but you still want to eat them. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.